Hey y'all, welcome back to Mr. Global's channel. Before I get started on when the truth is not enough, that is what I am calling this piece. But before we get started on that, please like and subscribe. Thank you to all of my new followers. Now let's get into it. When the truth is not enough. I personally have spent years trying to teach people, trying to educate people, mostly on misinformation around the energy industry, more specifically the oil and gas industry, but I do speak a lot about renewables as well. And one thing I have learned over the years is the truth is simply not enough. You can tell people the truth, you can show people the truth. The fact is, they don't care. Now, there are very deep psychological, cultural, and social things at play here when you're trying to talk to someone about politics. And we're going to cover what those things are. We're also going to talk about how you approach someone who is very resistant to your point of view and the facts that you carry. You see, people often align their beliefs with their political tribe. It's called tribalism. And any movement away from that to them feels like a betrayal to their side. So, if you're a Democrat, you feel like it's a betrayal to Democrats, or if you're a Republican, it feels like you're betraying other Republicans. It's a very strong emotion. One example of this is around climate change. So the term climate change is often associated with liberal elites. And there are a lot of people in this world that don't want to be associated with liberal elites. So just the idea of someone listening to or hearing out arguments for climate change makes them feel emotionally like they would be accepting of something that liberal elites believe. And they can't handle that emotionally. Simply put, emotions, fear, hope, those things are stronger than logic. And the emotions will not allow you to accept the logic. They simply overpower it. When facts don't line up with strongly held beliefs, the brain literally protects itself from those facts. This is what cognitive dissonance is. We've all heard of cognitive dissonance, but it's actually a physical and psychological reaction to you having to accept something that is counter to your deeply held beliefs. And that is very difficult for a lot of people to overcome. And so because of that, people tend to just seek out information that confirms what they already believe. And I honestly have no idea why some people are this way and some people are not. Some people have a very emotional, close attachment to another group of people or a tribe or a politician. I have never experienced that. I know nothing about that. I have never had any sort of attachment to any politician, to any political party, to any group of people. It's just not a thing that I've ever experienced or even understand. It makes no sense to me. But people are different. Their brains are wired different. They have different lived experiences. We couldn't possibly go through all of the psychological factors that are at play here. All I can say is this is completely foreign to me. This is completely alien to me. I have no concept of why people think in this manner and why they do the things they do. I simply try to understand it because it can help with your approach when you're having a discussion with someone about politically charged issues. It's kind of a trip if you think about it. You also have to consider that there are billions of dollars being poured into misinformation campaigns by governments all over the world. Governments and politicians. They understand people's weaknesses. They understand people's biasness. They understand the people who are listening to this misinformation more than the people themselves. This is another one of the scary things about corporations and governments being able to collect data on people, because trapped within that data, even though it doesn't directly say, they can find out enough information about you to figure out what type of person you are and how you think. They can look at your shopping habits. They can look at the way you spend money. They can look at your career. They can look at your age, your race, your religion. They can put together an entire profile of who you are, and they can determine if you are someone who would be more susceptible than misinformation or not. Yeah, that's a thing. Now, here are a few ways to communicate with people who are suffering from cognitive dissonance, people who refuse to believe the facts when presented to them. And I'm going to be honest with you, I struggle with this probably more than anything, because at this point, I still lack the skills necessary to successfully pull some of this stuff off. And so one of the first things is empathy first. It's very difficult for me to have empathy for someone who simply won't listen to me and does not care what I have to say. But it is also true that the best way to get a response from someone, or the best way to listen to someone, or have someone listen to you, is for them not to feel attacked. And I'm not very good at that. I'm going to be honest. I come across quite often like I'm attacking people, probably because I sort of am in my own way. Secondly is use a trusted source. And what I mean is, if you paint yourself as some extreme liberal, you're not going to have a lot of luck talking to a conservative, even if you're presenting them with facts. So you need to find someone much more conservative, even a conservative if possible, that shares the same beliefs you do, either a politician, someone in the media, and say, look, this person says it too. It's someone that they can appeal to, someone that they can identify with. That sometimes works, and sometimes it doesn't. It just doesn't. And in addition to appeal to identity, what we're talking about is framing your truth in a way where it aligns with their identity, right? So instead of framing something as climate change, maybe frame it around energy independence, right? You're speaking to their identity. You're speaking to them in a way where they will listen. And you just have to get them to listen long enough for you to make your case. And then, of course, we have fact check with care. And this is a lot like the first one, empathy first. Try not to shame people when you are correcting them. Try to speak to them in a way where you're not shaming them. If you shame them, they will dig deeper. They will double down. So if someone is spreading misinformation, you could just say, oh, well, I thought it was this. Can we check that together? Let's double check. Can we Google this? Have a softer conversation. Hey, I thought this was in the big, beautiful budget. Maybe we should look it up. Maybe I'm wrong. Even if you're right, the words, maybe I'm wrong, buy you some time, give you an opportunity to take time with that person and show them that you weren't. That doesn't mean it's going to work, but the longer you can keep the conversation going, the longer you can keep the person listening. First, you got to get them to start listening. That's the hardest part. But once you get them listening, they start asking questions and they start returning the same energy you're giving to them, then you've hooked them. Then you've got them. You've opened up their mind a little bit. And they're not going to agree with you when this conversation is over. But from that time forward, they're going to be thinking about the things you said to them. When they're laying in bed at night, they're going to be thinking about what you said, and they're going to start looking. And eventually, they will come around. Anyway, that's it for this edition of Mr. Global, when the truth no longer matters. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks, guys.